You've been taught to be kind, quiet, and agreeable. You've been told that the world rewards patience and that self-sacrifice earns respect. But let me ask you, how many times have you been overlooked, ignored, or even used despite giving your best? There's a reason for that, and it has nothing to do with bad luck. It has everything to do with how you've been conditioned. This isn't about blaming you, it's about waking you up. Because somewhere along the way, your goodness stopped being a strength and started becoming a script, a predictable pattern of self-erasure dressed up as virtue. And the truth is, predictable people don't command power. They become tools in someone else's strategy. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't write to flatter kings. He wrote to expose the raw mechanics of respect, reputation, and survival. What he knew then still applies now. If you don't define yourself, the world will do it for you, and it won't be kind. What passes as morality today is often just obedience repackaged. If you've ever felt emotionally drained by people who needed you, if you've ever stayed silent to keep the peace, if you've ever given too much hoping it would be returned, this is your moment. Because what's draining you isn't your compassion, it's your unprotected spirit. And Machiavelli would call that poor strategy. This video isn't about becoming ruthless, it's about becoming clear. It's for the ones who want to live with depth but without losing their edge, who crave peace but not at the price of dignity, who are done bending so far that they forget what standing tall feels like. You don't need to be feared, but you must be felt. Here we dive into 7 brutal truths about power, presence, and personal command, taught through a lens most people avoid. Not because it's wrong, but because it's too real. This isn't comfort food. It's the kind of nourishment that shakes your bones and sharpens your spine, the kind that turns silence into structure. And if some of what you hear today cuts deep, maybe that's because part of you is ready to stop bleeding. Maybe deep down you know the softness has gone too far, that people respect clarity more than kindness, and that peace isn't peace if it requires your disappearance. You're not here to vanish, you're here to command the room. So stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might not just see the world differently, you might finally see yourself, not as someone waiting for permission, but as someone who's ready to reclaim the script. This isn't rebellion, this is remembrance, and the world has no idea what's coming when you finally remember who you are.
The hidden cost of being too good. They told you to be kind always, to smile, stay soft, and say yes even when your chest tightened. But what they never told you is that constant kindness, unchallenged, unquestioned, turns into currency for other people's comfort. You become predictable, and predictable doesn't inspire respect, it invites exploitation. Goodness, when used without limits, becomes camouflage. You think you're being virtuous, but you're actually becoming invisible. The more you accommodate, the more they demand. The more you give, the less they appreciate. You're not being admired, you're being measured and found easy to bend. Machiavelli would say that those who seek to please everyone become tools in everyone's plan but their own. And isn't that what's happening? You soften your edges to be liked but lose your shape in the process. You shrink, smile, and adapt, and somehow they still cross the line. Again and again. The hard truth? You taught them how to treat you. With every silence when they disrespected you. With every "it's okay" when it wasn't. With every gesture of goodwill in exchange for crumbs of acknowledgement, you trained them to overlook you. And the worst part? You called it being a good person. Being good isn't the problem. Being endlessly agreeable is. There's power in kindness, but only when it's a choice, not a compulsion. If you're kind because you're afraid of rejection, you're not kind. You're compliant. And people can feel the difference, even if they never say it out loud. So, what do? Start small. Say no when it costs your peace. Delay your response when you're unsure. And stop explaining yourself to those who already made up their mind. Machiavelli would call this strategic restraint, not weakness, but self-command. It makes people pause, and that pause is power. Think of someone you truly respect. Is it because they were always nice, or because they had boundaries? That's the edge you've been missing. That ability to be gracious, but not submissive. To offer warmth, but hold the line. That's the kind of presence that gets remembered. And when you finally shift out of this performance of endless goodness, something clicks. People will notice. Some will be uncomfortable. Some will pull away. But don't panic. That's not a loss. That's clarity. And in that space, you'll start to see where the real work begins.
The illusion of virtue in playing small. Most people confuse submission with goodness. They think staying quiet, avoiding conflict, and always being agreeable means they're kind. But Machiavelli would see it for what it is: fear wearing the mask of virtue. Fear of confrontation, fear of being disliked, fear of being seen as too much. From childhood, you were taught to sit still and smile, to lower your voice, nod politely, and never challenge authority. But over time, that training becomes your personality. You don't know how to say no without guilt. You swallow your truth just to keep the peace. And eventually, you disappear from your own story. People say, "I just don't like conflict," as if that's a strength. But avoidance isn't peace. It's delay. And what you delay always comes back stronger. The suppressed conversations, the resentment, the silent agreements to things you never wanted. They don't vanish. They pile up until you break. Machiavelli believed that those who refuse to assert themselves end up ruled by those who do. And you felt that, haven't you? At work, at home, in relationships. The one who speaks least often suffers most. Not because they're weak, but because they confuse silence with strength. They think endurance equals respect. It doesn't. Let's be real. People push where there's no resistance. If you never push back, you're telling the world you can be moved. Over time, others stop checking in with your needs because you've trained them not to. They'll say, "I thought you were fine with it," while you're quietly falling apart inside. And still, you nod. The antidote isn't aggression, it's clarity. Start speaking your needs with calm certainty. Don't wait until you're boiling to set a boundary. Do it while you're still calm enough to be respected. Say, "I'm not available for that," or "That doesn't work for me anymore." Simple, clean, unapologetic. Yes, people will react. Some may try to guilt you. Others might distance themselves. Let them. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. It's just the echo of the old role you played for too long, a role you were never meant to carry. You're not here to be agreeable. You're here to be aligned.
When empathy becomes a silent weakness, Empathy is powerful, but without structure, it becomes a leak. The more you feel for others, the easier it is to lose your edge. And when people sense you'll always understand them, they stop respecting your time, your boundaries, even your pain. Machiavelli wouldn't call that compassion. He'd call it poor strategy. There's a thin line between being emotionally available and emotionally exposed. When you're constantly absorbing others' problems, you're not helping. You're absorbing weight that isn't yours to carry. And while you're losing sleep over someone else's chaos, they're resting just fine. That's not love. That's imbalance. You've probably said, "I get where they're coming from," right before someone stepped on your dignity. That's the trap. You humanize their flaws, but they dehumanize your effort. You justify their actions while they dismiss your silence. It's not empathy at that point, it's self-erasure with good PR. Empathy, when misused, trains others to make you the emotional dumping ground. They come to you for comfort, not correction, for release, not responsibility. And you, thinking you're doing the right thing, become the quiet landfill for their unresolved patterns. Machiavelli would ask, who benefits from your endless understanding? It's time to redefine compassion. Real empathy includes self-respect. It means offering your heart, not handing it over. You can be kind and still say, "That's not my weight to carry." You can listen and still say, "That doesn't excuse the behavior." That balance is where your influence is born. Try this next time someone crosses a line. Instead of over-explaining or absorbing guilt, pause and ask, "What would I expect from someone who respected me?" Then respond from there. Your energy is valuable. Don't give it to people who only show up when they need to feel better at your expense. People will say you've changed, that you're colder now, less available. But you're not colder, you're clearer. Clarity looks cold to those who were warmed by your confusion. It's not your job to dim yourself so others can stay comfortable. And it's not empathy if it costs your soul. The moment you balance care with discernment, you become magnetic, not because you're perfect, but because you're whole. The right people will recognize that. The wrong ones will call it selfish. Let them, because where we go next, kindness alone won't be enough.
The silent power of saying no. Machiavelli would tell you it's the most strategic one. When used wisely, it defines your values without needing a speech. It tells the world, "I'm not here to be used, I'm here to choose." And that choice, your refusal, is where real power begins. People often say yes to avoid discomfort. But every yes given under pressure chips away at self-respect. Eventually, you're overwhelmed, not by workload, but by the weight of all the boundaries you didn't set. You say yes to them and no to yourself. That's not generosity, that's self-abandonment in slow motion. The most respected people you know aren't available for everything, and that's why you admire them. They've curated their time, energy, and emotional bandwidth. They don't respond instantly, they don't over-explain. Their boundaries speak louder than their words. That's not arrogance, it's structure. Try saying no without apology, just once. No dramatic excuse, no fake delay, just, "No, that doesn't align with what I'm focused on." Watch how the air shifts. Some will push back, others will pause, And those pauses, that's the sound of the room recalibrating to your self-respect. You're not here to be everyone's helper. You're here to walk in your own rhythm. Every no to what drains you is a yes to what builds you. Every time you protect your energy, you rewire your identity. Machiavelli would call it discipline. Modern culture might call it boundaries. But whatever you call it, it's the beginning of authority. And here's the twist. The more you say no, the less you have to. Why? Because people start learning your pattern. They stop asking for what you don't tolerate. They begin to respect your presence because your absence has meaning. You become known not for availability, but for intentionality. Of course, it won't please everyone. Some will guilt trip, some will pull away. But ask yourself, who benefits from your lack of boundaries? Who feels entitled to your yes? Once you spot that pattern, you stop fearing the backlash, because what you're protecting is worth more than what you're risking. Saying no doesn't make you harsh, it makes you whole. And when you become whole, you stop leaking power. From that place, your presence begins to shape rooms, and your silence begins to speak volumes. And once you master this, you're ready to see what else the world was hiding behind a smile.
The art of seeing through masks. Some people don't lie with words, they lie with presence. They smile, they flatter, they mean well, but you feel it in your gut. Something's off. That's not paranoia, it's perception. Machiavelli believed the smartest leaders aren't those who speak the most, but those who read what's left unsaid. The game is always deeper than the surface. You've probably trusted someone who showed care but moved like a strategist, who remembered your weaknesses more than your victories, who wrapped manipulation in affection. These people don't take from you with force. They let you hand it over willingly. And they know you will because they've studied your kindness like a playbook. Emotional manipulators wear masks built from your blind spots. They use guilt as currency, silence as punishment. "I'm just worried about you" becomes a leash. "I'm here for you" becomes control. Machiavelli would call this refined warfare, influence without confrontation. But you don't need to fight back. You need to see clearly. The moment you stop judging people by what they say and start observing how you feel around them, everything changes. Real connection energizes. Strategic control drains. The shift is subtle, but your body always knows first. That tightness in your chest, that sudden fatigue, that's your intuition raising its hand. Let's be honest, not everyone deserves your story. Not everyone holding your hand wants to see you rise. Some are just afraid you'll outgrow the version of you they could control. Once you realize that, the flattery loses flavor. The attention loses power. Their mask starts slipping, and you finally stop playing along. Try this. Next time someone offers you advice or concern, ask yourself, do they gain if I stay the same? If the answer is yes, step back. Not with anger, but with awareness. Distance isn't cruelty, it's clarity. And sometimes silence is the loudest boundary you'll ever set. People may call you distant, guarded, or changed. Let them, because behind that mask of concern may live jealousy, fear, or subtle sabotage. And your only job isn't to expose them. It's to protect the peace you fought hard to build. Machiavelli wouldn't confront the mask. He'd outmaneuver it. And once you see through the masks around you, something deeper awakens.
You begin to question if you've been wearing one too. The one that says, "I'm fine." The one that hides your exhaustion behind a smile. But don't worry, because where we're going next, that mask won't be needed anymore.
Presence over volume. How real power moves quietly. You've seen it before. Someone walks into a room and everything changes. Not because they're loud or flashy or demanding, but because their presence speaks before they do. Machiavelli understood this type of influence. Real power doesn't beg for attention. It makes the room adjust without effort. Presence is the product of inner alignment. When your values, actions, and energy are synchronized, people feel it, even if they can't explain it. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the calmest force in the storm. And the one thing power never does, apologize for existing. You don't build presence by memorizing quotes or perfecting body language. You build it by becoming someone who respects themselves when no one's watching. That quiet integrity shapes how you enter spaces, how you say no without raising your tone, how you hold eye contact without needing to dominate. That's the edge. Try this the next time you enter a room. Say less, observe more, breathe deeper, sit with stillness. Presence expands in silence because it doesn't need to perform. People start to lean in, not because you demanded it, but because you're calm, unsettled their chaos. That's power. That's leadership without force. The mistake many make is chasing validation through volume. The more they try to prove, the more their presence shrinks. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You need to believe in it so fully that it radiates without explanation. That confidence isn't arrogance. It's earned stillness. Think of the people you admire. Most aren't reactive. They move slowly, but with certainty. They don't interrupt. They don't overcompensate. And yet, you'd follow them. Why? Because power doesn't live in tension. It lives in groundedness. Machiavelli would call this command by stillness, and it's often more effective than any speech. Presence also means removing yourself from rooms that ignore your value. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't standing your ground. It's walking away from ground that no longer deserves you. You don't need to make noise when you leave. The silence will echo just fine. Once you master presence, people stop testing your boundaries. They sense the weight of your attention, the clarity in your gaze, the calm in your voice. You become someone who doesn't chase respect because you already carry it. And where we're headed next, that weight will speak even louder.
The submissive mind. How fear of rejection shapes your life. Many people aren't kind. They're terrified. They confuse people-pleasing with love. They shrink themselves not out of humility, but out of fear. Fear of being abandoned, misunderstood, or labeled difficult. Machiavelli knew that fear governs more people than logic ever will. And when fear runs the show, power disappears. You felt it, biting your tongue just to avoid tension, overcommitting to things you hated just to avoid looking selfish, saying it's okay when your soul was screaming otherwise.
But every time you do that, you're not protecting peace, you're trading self-respect for temporary comfort. And comfort isn't always safe. The submissive mind thinks, if I stay agreeable, they won't leave. But here's the catch. The people who only stay because you're convenient were never really with you. You were their emotional service provider, their stability on demand. And the moment you ask for reciprocity, they vanish like smoke. Machiavelli would say those who seek love at any cost often pay with their dignity. And isn't that true? You become the helper, the fixer, the listener, hoping someone will notice how much you give. But they won't, because the role you play hides the truth of who you are, and roles are disposable. Let's get clear. You're not meant to be everyone's emotional sponge. The fear of being rejected has kept you hostage in places you've long outgrown. That job, that friendship, that relationship built on your silence. Freedom doesn't come from being accepted. It comes from accepting yourself enough to walk alone if needed. Here's a challenge. Go one day without explaining yourself. Say what you mean, leave when it's time. Don't over-clarify. Watch how uncomfortable it feels and how much power it unlocks. Because fear loses its grip when you stop negotiating your truth to keep people comfortable. That's not peace. That's prison. And yes, some people will say you're changing, that you're cold now. But what they're really saying is, I don't know how to manipulate you anymore. Let them be uncomfortable. Growth makes people nervous when they were fed by your self-neglect. But your job isn't to be understood, it's to be respected. And the day you stop fearing rejection is the day you become magnetic. You won't need to prove anything. Your boundaries will speak for you. And the people who truly see you won't need your silence to feel safe. They'll rise to meet your presence or reveal they never belonged there to begin with.
The quiet exit. What happens when you stop playing small? Some breakups don't come with screaming. They come with silence. One day, you just stop texting back. You stop explaining, justifying, overgiving. And suddenly, the people who depended on your passivity start to panic. Machiavelli would call this strategic withdrawal, not weakness, but reclaiming power without warning. You don't need to announce that you've outgrown your role. The shift is enough. When your yes becomes sacred and rare, people notice. When your absence carries more weight than your presence once did, people remember. And when you walk away without noise, it echoes louder than any speech. The truth is, some people were only loyal to your silence. They thrived on your guilt, your predictability, your emotional labor. And now that you've stopped playing along, they call you distant, cold, changed. But you didn't change, you returned. You stopped performing the version of yourself that made them comfortable. Try observing what happens when you stop offering explanations. Watch who leans in with respect and who recoils with entitlement. The former are allies, the latter were placeholders. And Machiavelli would tell you, when masks fall, the kingdom gets clean. Not everyone lost is a loss.
There's a sacred kind of loneliness that comes with reclaiming yourself. It's not isolation, it's detox. You're no longer surrounding yourself with noise just to avoid your own clarity. The silence hurts at first, but it sharpens you. It makes your standards louder, and it reminds you that peace isn't always pretty. Don't be surprised when people say, "You're not like you used to be." That's the point. The old version of you was built on anxiety, approval-seeking, and emotional contortion. This one, built on coherence, limits, and quiet resolve. One bends to survive, the other stands to lead. You'll lose some connections, but gain something greater: alignment. The ones who remain won't love you for your performance. They'll love you for your presence, not the convenience of your comfort, but the strength of your honesty. And from that place, you start building real power, one quiet decision at a time. And as you settle into this new frequency, something shifts. You no longer chase closure. You no longer ask for clarity, because you've become both. And the world begins to adjust, not because you demanded it, but because you stopped disappearing. And that silence, it's just the beginning.
Respect begins within. Why coherence builds real authority. Respect isn't something you demand, it's something you embody. And it always starts from within. When your words match your actions, and your actions match your values, people feel it. Machiavelli knew that perception rules reputation, and reputation begins with consistency. You can't lead anyone until you lead yourself. The reason people don't take some seriously: incoherence. Saying one thing, doing another. Preaching boundaries, but never enforcing them. Talking about peace, but living in chaos. That gap between image and behavior is where authority dies. You can't influence anyone when your life contradicts your message. You don't earn respect by being perfect. You earn it by being stable. When people know where you stand, they adjust. When you show up consistently, even in silence, your presence gains weight. Machiavelli would say, "The leader who holds his line, even quietly, is more feared than the one who constantly explains it." Try making one personal standard non-negotiable. Just one. Maybe it's punctuality. Maybe it's no gossip. Maybe it's honoring your word even when it's inconvenient. And then guard it fiercely, because that one act of discipline becomes a mirror. People reflect back what you tolerate and what you enforce. Coherence also filters who stays. The more aligned you become, the more incompatible energy falls away. That's not rejection, it's refinement. As you step into deeper self-respect, the people who require your confusion to stay connected will disconnect. Let them. That's clarity doing its work. People won't always understand your discipline. Some will mock it. Others will test it. But that's where influence is born, not in how much you please, but in how well you protect your standards. And standards aren't about rigidity. They're about remembering who you are when the pressure shows up.
Machiavelli knew that internal order creates external command. If you're chaotic inside, no strategy will hold. But when your mind, behavior, and boundaries align, you become untouchable. Not arrogant, not loud, just immovable. And that kind of presence doesn't chase influence, it attracts it. So the next time you wonder why people aren't respecting you, ask, where am I not respecting myself? Where am I negotiating my values just to avoid discomfort? That reflection is your starting point, because where we're heading next, you won't just be aligned, you'll be felt.
Your energy teaches others how to treat you. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you tolerate. People don't learn your worth by what you say, but by what your energy permits. Machiavelli would argue, authority isn't proclaimed, it's modeled. And whether you realize it or not, every day you're training others how to treat you. That subtle tone in your voice, the way you hesitate to set a boundary, the way you laugh off disrespect, it's all data. Not just for you, but for those around you. People watch more than they listen. And if your energy signals, I don't want to upset anyone, guess what? You won't. But you'll upset yourself, quietly, daily. You've probably noticed the pattern. The more you give without limits, the more people expect. The more you bend, the more they lean, until you're exhausted, and they're surprised when you finally say no. But it wasn't sudden, it was overdue, and you taught them it was okay, until it wasn't. Want to change how you're treated? Start with your posture, your eye contact, your tone. Small shifts in presence create massive shifts in dynamic. Walk slower, speak less, mean more. When you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need approval, the world begins to respond in kind. But here's the secret. Your energy only shifts when your self-concept does. You can't fake it for long. You have to believe deeply that your time matters, your space matters, your voice matters. That belief becomes vibration, and vibration doesn't lie. It either commands or it collapses. Machiavelli didn't preach cruelty, he preached clarity. And your clarity about who you are is your greatest defense. No shield, no sword, just the quiet force of someone who no longer participates in their own mistreatment. That's where influence begins, not in domination, but in self-honor. Try this. Before you walk into any room, ask yourself, what version of me walks in here today? Choose the one who leads, not pleases, the one who observes before reacting, the one who knows their silence has gravity. That question alone can rewire how people engage with your presence, because once your energy teaches respect, your words become optional. And at that point, the game changes completely. But to step into that version of yourself, there's one more piece to unlock, a truth most people never dare to face. And that's exactly where we're headed next.
Let's be honest. You didn't come this far just to stay light. You came to lead, to evolve, to reclaim the parts of you that got buried under politeness, fear, and fatigue. If any part of this message hits you in the chest, good. That's not discomfort, that's awakening. An awakening always demands action. The question isn't whether the world will respect you, it's whether you'll stop negotiating your worth. Because until you do, life will keep handing you situations that reflect your hesitation. But the moment you shift, the game resets. People don't change because you ask them to. They change when your presence commands it. Now pause. Which part of this journey shook you the most? Was it realizing how much silence you've tolerated? Or how your niceness masked your fear of being alone? Share your moment in the comments. It's not just your story.
Someone else is living it right now and waiting for a voice to name it. And if your instinct is to stay quiet, don't. Write, respond, reflect. The comments are where clarity deepens. And who knows, the sentence you leave might be the sentence that saves someone else's day or your own. That's how influence starts. Quietly, courageously, one truth at a time. If you found value here, imagine what's coming next. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This isn't just content, it's strategy for the soul. And every new video is another step in your rise. Don't miss what could be the piece you didn't know you needed. Also, if you're ready to go deeper, click the video that's appearing on your screen now, or find it in the description. It connects directly to this one and will sharpen what you just learned. Trust me, you'll want to see it through. Because the truth is, growth is uncomfortable, but regret? That's unbearable. You already felt the shift, now follow through. Respect isn't given, it's reinforced. And your next move is how the world will learn to speak your name. So, which version of you is walking forward from here?